I think that when you look at the fundamental breakthroughs with Bitcoin, one of them is solving the double spend problem. And the second is solving the problem of how you transfer a Bitcoin without a trusted intermediary, without a trusted third party. So oftentimes those things are used in context of an asset or a currency. But if you think more deeply about this, solving the double spend problem is the same as solving the problem of conservation of energy in the universe. Once you get your head around the idea that Bitcoin is digital energy and it could vibrate and oscillate at all frequencies and it could be transformed. What is vibration? Vibration is converting your kinetic energy to potential energy, or converting one form of energy to another form of energy, right? Once you understand that, and then you think, we've got a way to put energy in cyberspace, now an entire world of possibilities open up. For example, if Bitcoin is digital energy, then I can create radiation in cyberspace. So for example, the sun shines upon you. What does that mean? And music to your ears. What does that mean? Music to your ears is acoustic energy flowing through the room to make you happy. So if I put sunshine on the planet, I light up the planet. It's energy, and eventually the energy could be converted by photosynthesis into life, right? So, and eventually you end up with things like coal, and you'll have oil, and you have everything that we live off of. Okay, so what is the equivalent of radiation in cyberspace? It's, you come to my website and you have a Lightning wallet, and I have a Lightning source, or a Satoshi source. And every second you spend on my website, I send you 1 Satoshi. That's a very light sunshine. What if I sent you 100 Satoshis? Brighter sunshine. What if I sent you 1,000,000 Satoshis a second? Would you bask in the glow, right, of my radiation, right? In that particular case, you're going to get very powerful. I mean, think about standing underneath 1,000,000 Satoshis a second. If you understand Bitcoin is digital energy, and you can see high frequency vibration or high frequency exchange, you can create an entirely new class of applications using Lightning, right? You could create cybersecurity applications. You create Lightning badges that will allow you to cross cyber domains. You can create marketing applications that actually reward people with streaming sats for their attention. You can create any kind of high frequency interactions. They say you can't die in cyberspace. Well, you can't die in cyberspace except through proxy right now, because everything is really based on a trusted third party or a counterparty, and they're the one that decide, like Visa or a credit card network. They decide whether you ran out of money and they kick you out, or they come they knock on your door and they arrest you because you can't pay your bill. If we actually throw away the Visa network and the banks, and we just substitute a Lightning wallet on one side and a Lightning wall or a Lightning source on the other side, or Lightning Bank, then you can literally move anywhere at the speed of light. You can move through 1,000 websites in 10 milliseconds each. You can exchange energy, and you can receive energy for your action. You can create or duplicate gravity. You can also duplicate friction, right? You can also create the speed of sound. You can create limits. For example, how fast should you be able to move through Twitter or through YouTube? Right? At the point where, this morning I posted a tweet and I had 6 comments within 1 second. They weren't real people. They were bots, right? So in a world without friction and a world without consequences, I can send 1,000,000 bots to 1,000,000 places and smash them up anonymously in order to corrupt cyberspace. But what we have now with Bitcoin, once you properly understand it, once you see that it is truly a block of energy, it's moving at low frequency on the base layer, but it moves extremely high frequency on a layer 2 or a layer 3. So capital is energy. We had $500 million of treasury capital. If you store your energy in pesos, that $500 million would become worth about $5 million. Right? Like I made a joke the other day. Lex Friedman said, I picked up $20 off the street, and I said, $20 doesn't buy what 7 cents used to. And the joke was that the value of $20 has decayed by 99.7% in 90 years. 99.7%. That's the loss of true energy in the currency. So if you're holding your capital or your life force or energy as a company in a currency or currency derivative, and that means dollars or US sovereign debt, the monetary inflation rate, or which is the adiabatic lapse rate, which is the risk-free rate, which is the cost of capital, is like 15 to 20%. And in March of 2020, what we saw was the cost of capital went to 25%. Now, what is everything? Well, scarce desirable products. The S&P index went up 25% in 12 months. So you had an expansion of the currency, right? Expansion of the currency results in a collapse in the energy per unit of currency. This is the same as if I expanded the size of your room by a factor of 2, but I kept the oxygen or the air in it the same, the temperature would fall. It would freeze you to death. So what we saw in March was the currency expanding. We're sitting on a block of $500 million, and you can do the math in your head, and you can conclude that half the energy or half the wealth you have will be gone in about 36 months, maybe 48 to 36. So, why did we convert to Bitcoin? Well, for the same reason that if I told you I was sucking the oxygen out of the room you're in right now, and I'm going to suck 20% of the oxygen out of the room, every period for the next 4 periods, you would reach for an oxygen mask, or you would run out of the room. Every company in the world that's sitting on a treasury, if you had $1 billion right now in US sovereign debt, it's costing you somewhere in the order of $150 to $200 million a year to hold that position. The smart thing to do, like if you're conventional, what you do is you give all the money back to the shareholders and you borrow $1 billion, and you run on zero net working capital. Or you even run on minus, like I borrowed $2 billion and I have minus $1 billion in currency. So if I can get heavily indebted, I have negative working capital. So instead of it costing me $200 million a year to keep the money, I make $200 million a year because I'm leeching off of the general public. I'm basically taking advantage of my ability to borrow money from a central bank or a bank in order to get short or have a negative effective working capital balance. Now, where do you see that? Japan. In Japan, whenever you see a zombie company that is loaded up with debt, what the company did is they basically converted all of their positive capital into negative working capital. So perversely, if I owe $10 billion and if the money supply or the currency supply expands at 15% a year, and if I pay 3% interest, I actually make $120 million a year doing nothing. You ask yourself the question, well, how are you going to borrow $1 billion of money, right? My advice is, if you could, it would be a good idea, right? If you were able to borrow $1 billion in an inflationary environment, you would get rich in a hurry just by being negative energy or negative currency. So why'd MicroStrategy do it? It's like, well, we were basically what we realized is that if we generate $75 million of free cash flow a year, through the work of 2,000 people working as hard as they can. And if we held $500 million of US currency derivatives, losing $150 million a year, then we would net negative lose $75 million a year in shareholder value working as hard as we could forever. It's just digital currency, or it's digital, or maybe it's digital property. That's well understood and appreciated now. But it started out as a currency. People, I think, have embraced the fact that it's really digital property because it's low frequency money. It's not going to be a currency per se until it's legal to transfer it without a taxable event. And of course, the legal part is a regulation put on by a nation state. So if the nation state makes it possible to transfer it without a taxable event, it could be a currency. Until then, it's really just a property. And I think we got past that hurdle for the most part. Now people go, well, it's not energy. It's not energy because you can't convert it into electricity. Well, and I think that's a crippling ignorance on the part of a lot of people, because if you don't understand that it's digital energy, then there's like $100 trillion worth of applications you're not going to get, right? The most powerful ideas are paradigm shifts. Warren Buffett doesn't understand that Bitcoin is digital property, right? The last week he said, well, I can get yield, I can rent out farmland, and I can rent out a building, but I can't rent out Bitcoin. He's like, well, totally wrong. Of course you can rent out Bitcoin, right? In fact, Bitcoin is like farmland or a building on land, but you got rid of the land nexus and you got rid of the building maintenance cost, and now you have the pure capital, right? If you thought more theoretically, you would understand that Bitcoin is pure digital capital, which means that anywhere in the world, you can find hundreds of thousands of people that will want to rent out your capital.